On 531 VI.
It has just gone 8:30. This is Pacific Mornings. It's great to be in your company for Wednesday, the 13th of August. Now, this week, Foreign Minister Vaovasamanaia Winston Peters heads to Fiji for the Pacific Islands Forum Foreign Ministers meeting, the final stop before leaders gather in Honiara next month. Now, around the table, every word and every handshake will inevitably count, and the outcome could shape how the Pacific confronts its biggest challenges in the years ahead. Winston Peters joins me now to discuss the upcoming agenda, perhaps the pressure points and New Zealand's role in finding common ground. A very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning.
Look, you've said it before in terms of it's more important than ever for the Pacific family to come together. What specific challenges are you referring to?
Well, look, it's just 19 years ago that we, and I was there at the time, signed the agreement to make the Forum an international organisation. And we've had a number of issues over all this time, going before that to now, but none is so as serious as they presently are. And I'm talking about the geostrategic positioning of certain countries, issues like the economy, which has always been a big concern for the island nations, of course. The fundamentals that beset all populations, things like health and education, employment in particular, the mobility of people, all of those things are sort of forefront on a pretty big agenda.
Yes, certainly. With all those challenges highlighted then, what things that matter to us will you be pushing to discuss in Suva?
Well, we'll be pushing the importance of the Pacific Islands Forum in its centrality to the Pacific, the blue continent we call ourselves, and the need for us to cooperate and work together on so many projects that are of benefit to all of us. And in doing that, doing our best to bring in outside parties to help us enable this progress to be made. There are lots and lots of things to be done in the Pacific, as you know. Some countries are doing better than others, but we're trying to lift everyone at the same time in a massive expanse of ocean, perhaps about 31% of the world's surface, if you're looking at the blue continent, of which the Pacific Islands Forum occupies a significant part of it. And then ensuring that when we go to these meetings, there's a sense of urgency to get things done, not let things drift.
Yeah, look, and you can stop me if I'm wrong in my assessment. I often describe PIF as a dysfunctional family in parts because there seems to be some kind of tit-for-tat going on. I mean, what do you think of this latest example of the Solomon Islands Prime Minister's decision to limit attendance at the Pacific Islands Forum?
Well, it's a serious concern because at the centre of such a decision is the view that outsiders are now controlling who attends. Outsiders are controlling the visitation list. And the visitation and association visitation list are countries which we seriously need to take our economic and social planning forward. We need these countries because we need their help. And that's what's of the greatest concern to us, because we have a major set of objectives going forward. It'll need financial capacity and assistance. It's not a great deal of money, but getting it's the hardest part in a very difficult world.
Do you think Beijing looms large at all over the decision-making here?
Well, it has, I believe. There's no denying that. It's been outside influence and pressure on the Solomons not to invite certain countries. And as a consequence, no countries are being invited. Now, we can't go forward when we're offshore, dare I say it, in Scandinavia, in the Middle East, dare I say it, in places like Switzerland and Germany, asking them to be part of our program going forward and working together on multi-country funded projects when all of a sudden they've been shut out. You see what I mean? So this had to be delayed for another year until we go to Palau in 2026, where we expect them to be all invited back. But we've got no time to waste, and that's the concern.
Yeah, certainly. What's New Zealand's position, say, on Taiwan's particular exclusion from the forum meetings?
Well, it's on any country's exclusion. These are countries that have been allowed and been engaged for decades, actually. And then all of a sudden, we've got outside influences deciding who our guests will be. We need to take control collectively of our Pacific destiny. That's our message. And we'll be emphasizing that as hard as we can. It's not a matter of, how shall I put it, interference. But when you've got economic circumstances like we've got, and where you need friends, please be very careful how you treat the friends.
In all your experience with PIF, has it ever felt as perhaps fractured as it does today?
Well, we had sort of internal fractures, not of our external influence making. When we had the Micronesian split as a result of the chairmanship of the PIF being taken, in their view, by the wrong country or the wrong part of the Pacific. They had a really strong point when they said that. And we've now restored the balance, so to speak, and we've hardly got that restored. Just a couple of years later, bang, here comes another problem. So we've got to get alongside each other, and hopefully in Fiji tomorrow, and we'll have a chance to talk about that as we go off to the Solomons, and take collective control of our own destiny ourselves, but always putting the Pacific Islands Forum and its discussions and its decisions first. Not having them controlled by any outside influence that's untoward to the centrality of the organization and its purpose. It's, when I go to ASEAN, they're focused seriously on the economy and improvements in those areas. And when we go to the Pacific Islands Forums, unfortunately, the economy is not where it should be in terms of their priorities. And we should be also spending far more time on what resources they have got, which we can improve dramatically to uplift their economy. All of those things have got to become central to the Pacific Islands Forums going forward, and not just social issue and aid.
Yep, certainly. Look, just finally, give us a bit of insight into your thinking here. Do you ever just sit back when you get news like this exclusion situation, you're like, oh, really? It just feels like it gets in the way. Reading it, I'm like, as a reader, I'm like, come on.
Well, you sort of sit there and think, here we are, all these years going the hardest we can. And New Zealand is a great country in that context. We have not been blameless in terms of being perfect. Yes, we have made some past mistakes, but we've always sought to do our best. And across the political divide of politics, be a serious neighbour and a good neighbour. Because it's not our back door, it's our front door. And also we've got the DNA connection going back thousands of years embodied in New Zealand and across the political system in New Zealand. There are a whole lot of people in New Zealand who are Polynesians in Parliament. Now, all this should be to the advantage. And you're quite right. You hear this news, you think, oh, I don't believe what's happened here, because it feels like, one step forward and about 5 steps back. But guess what? It's a bit like the media. Problems happen all the time, and our job is to solve them.
Certainly. Hey, look, just from one problem to another, if I could quickly just get your thoughts on it. Of course, I'm talking about the Cook Islands dispute. I sat down with Henry Puna a few weeks back in Rarotonga, and he's really keen to meet with you to work towards a solution. Is it really that simple, though?
Well, the problem is that we have, and for 60 years, and revived by the Norman Kirk period by an agreement, and then the Helen Clark period by an agreement with Dr. Moate, that was then the Prime Minister in 2001 of Cook Islands. We have this agreement for certain things to happen, and they stopped happening. And you can't, defy gravity, so to speak, and say nothing's happening here. No, something has happened, and we need to sort it out. If it is freedom from New Zealand, independence from New Zealand that the Cook Islands people want, then let us know, because as Helen Clark said, that was an option back in 2001. But our engagement is with the Cook Islands people, the New Zealand people and the Cook Islands people, not just politicians and government. No, something far bigger than that, because politicians and governments come and go, but the people don't. That's our point, and we want it sorted out.
What's it going to take? I mean, Puna, like I mentioned, is very keen to talk with you. He spoke of you very highly. and he thinks he could be the bridge between himself, Mark Brown, and yourself. What do you say to that? Would you welcome that?
Well, I'd welcome in anything, but the reality is we've got a senior group of officials on both sides who are working our way through this. And, this is not our first rodeo. These things happen in other circumstances, and our job is to fix that up. But again, you cannot have both. You cannot say that we have this special relationship where consultation is required, not consult, and then say, well, that's no matter. In fact, what's wrong with that is that you're acting in a paternalistic and bossy way. We find that an affront. We've done nothing of the sort. We've always consulted.
Yeah.
But it is the New Zealand economy and its people, and many of them are Polynesians, and dare I say that other parts of the Pacific in New Zealand, and many of them are working 2 and 3 jobs, and they're paying taxes to help those island nations. We want a thing called reciprocity and respect, not between New Zealand and them, but between the peoples who are doing all this. I don't hear New Zealand taxpayers complaining about this, but if they knew that perhaps it's not being received with the gratitude it should be, or that their support, and it's huge, is of no moment to these island nations, then please let us know. It's not a matter about an argument. It's a matter about how you treat your own family. And this is a family dispute, you're quite right.
Yeah. Look, final question on this dispute. I mean, so
I
what is...
don't know whether you're the oldest one in your family or the youngest one in your family, but you obviously sometimes find that the youngest ones tend not to understand what the oldest ones have been through.
Yeah, certainly, certainly.
You notice that?
Yeah. Look, I mean, so what's the actual, at the end of the day, because it's all anyone's talking about in Rarotonga. As soon as I got off the plane, Winston, I heard your name from a group of mamas. They were talking about you, not in a bad way, but it's just the talk of the town there. I mean, what's the actual hold-up to this? Is it just officials just have to do their thing?
The officials have to do their thing, and they have to do it with speed, but the reality is, if the Cook Islands entered an agreement with another country of the nature that it did without consulting New Zealand, then it is a clear expression that something is wrong with our relationship, or part of the conditions of our relationship they don't wish to honour. It's that blunt. I can use all the diplomatic words I like, but the reality is that's what's happened here. And then to say that somehow we've been paternalistic. Look, we've put in the last 3 years $192 million to the Cook Islands economy. Its people are on an income 5-6 times higher than that of Tonga and other parts of the Pacific. New Zealand has been a great neighbour, as I say, and even to the extent that medical access to our country is guaranteed, passports are guaranteed, and you can even pick up New Zealand super in the Cook Islands and live there.
Wow.
And guess who did that? We're looking at him. So, I'm just asking when I say these things, that the agreements that were signed by way back 60 years ago and then updated by Norman Kirk and updated by Helen Clark are honoured.
Look, it would be remiss of me not to ask this before we wrap it up, but I'm going to go there. This is on Palestine. Australia says it will recognise Palestinian statehood. Begs the question, why not New Zealand?
Well, let me ask you this question. What would that recognition mean when you say Palestinian statehood? See, our position has always been, and it's been the position of New Zealand for years, that it's not a matter of if, it's when we have a state to recognise. That has certain features. And I think we're entitled to have a discussion and ask, so what do you think you're recognising? Or are you so panicked by the pressure that maybe you're letting your standards down that you have asserted and insisted upon all these years? We have got a lot of countries in the Middle East that we've communicated with. Egypt, the Emirates, dare I say, Turkey. I've talked to the very highest people, the presidents, the Palestinian Authority, had considerable discussions with the huge Muslim country in Indonesia. They understand our position. And when the Middle East says, well, Hamas must lay down its armaments and leave now, they are applying stricter conditions than some of the countries in the West are. And all I'm asking is, how come we're missing the point here? What is it you're going to recognise? That's what we're asking. And it's a discussion we've had with the Palestinian Authority. Can we see the plan going forward? And when it is there laid out, what's going to happen, then we can recognize something. But the next question you ask yourself is, so you made that statement, now what?
Yes.
That's my challenge to the other countries. So you made a statement yesterday, now what?
That's a good point. And that kind of leads me to the other side of the question here. Is this virtue signalling then by countries like Australia and France and etc.?
Well, I'd hate to give it that inflection because we're under enormous, and rightfully so, pressure at what was a appalling act of terrorism on the 7th of October, exploding into a war where many of us believe this has now gone way, way far than it should have gone. And we have said so all the way to the United Nations. We've said so over and over again. But then to flip and somehow think, all this will stop if we recognize the Palestinian state as a state right here, right now, without any structure whatsoever.
Mm.
If you think that, then I'm asking you today, has it changed anything today?
It's a good point. It's a good point, Minister. Look, before I let you go, I don't want to leave on a doom and gloom. I just want to, well, maybe it might be doom and gloom. How are things going at NZ First?
Well, as you know, we're on a mission. And we're out in the countryside, around New Zealand, packing the halls, and sometimes having to have two meetings because too many people came to the first meeting.
Oof.
That's what's happening in New Zealand First. We're keeping close to ordinary people, pushing the issues that New Zealanders are concerned about, that is the working people of this country, and keeping our eyes focused on what's important to them. That's why our support's rising. Despite present company accepted, the general ignore of New Zealand First by the mainstream media.
Appreciate your time, Minister, as always. That is Vaovasamanaia Winston Peters there, our Foreign Affairs Minister,
Thank
and
you.
enjoy the meeting when you get to it. Cheers.
Thank you.
You're listening to Pacific